Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have some of the most intentional and meticulously crafted systems. So, whenever there's something a little unusual going on, it tends to be gushing with reason and purpose. This is a music theory deep dive on how 3 simple notes can hold incredible depth. This video contains spoilers about the Rito quest and slight spoilers regarding the other sages, but it does contain more music theory than normal, so beware, strap in, and let's do this! Tulin's sage sound stood out immediately among the bunch. Sidon has a pretty percussive, beautiful jingle to complement his pretty beautiful face, whereas Riju and Yunobo both have sounds grounded heavily in their respective elements. Lightning and electric charge static for Riju, and Yunobo sounding like an actual cannonball! A bit of Goron silliness slipping in on the way back. Whenever he returns to you, he sounds a little bit like a deflating balloon, and it's magical. But Tulin sounded so much more melodic, almost like an alarm, a siren. I had to ask myself, why these notes? Why give him this musical tagline instead of the sound effects that the others got? I looked into the previous games, namely Wind Waker, to look for what his jingle might be referencing, listening to sound effects and also the beloved Dragon Roost Island, but that's when it hit me. The notes are a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minor 6th descending. But what happens when you take a sound effect and reverse it? Doesn't that sound familiar? As in the opening notes to the Rito Village theme? But what's funny here is that even though the relationship between the notes is the same, calling back to his roots, these are transposed away from the original key, which plays a big role in this. In 12-tone equal temperament, the musical system most widely used today, the octave is divided into 12 intervals of equal size. These intervals are called semitones. This means that every 12 semitones, it will loop back to the original note. Consider for a moment. Why did they move these notes for Tulin where they did? Why is it reversed? A composer's choices in a game as carefully crafted as this are always subservient to not just sounding good, but also telling a story, feeding into the lore and the emotional beats of the game. This passage in the original is in G minor, with the note G as its home base, its root note. But within this key, the furthest you can possibly get with semitones from the home root note is D flat or C sharp. And what other key would the Wind Sage's jingle land in but C sharp minor? This interval, the tritone, is as far away from home as possible. It's an uncomfortable, harsh sound, decidedly distant, and it even shows up that way on paper. The keys, stemming from root notes a tritone apart, are as different as possible when it comes to their key signatures. I like to think of key signatures as the engravings left by a locksmith to make a properly fitting key to open a given door. Natural major and minor keys have 7 notes, 7 potential places where a strip can either stay unaltered, get chipped away at, or have something added to. Key signatures can be blank or have between 1 to 7 of either flats or sharps, never a combination of those two. For C major, a flat strip left alone will work just fine, but a tritone up from C takes us to G flat major, where suddenly our key needs 6 engravings in order to function. It needs 6 flats in order to sound right, and so our key needs 6 indents in order to fit. Rito Village's passage here in G minor starts off needing 2 flats. Going up a tritone in this instance again requires 6 modifications to the key. You might be thinking, wait, that makes no sense. Couldn't you just make an even bigger jump between 7 flats and 7 sharps? Wouldn't that be 14 changes? Well, because of enharmonics, the tritone is as far and distant as it gets, both in context within a key and outside them too. Remember this. Going from C sharp major to C flat major is actually a pretty close jump. C flat is to our ears the same thing as B. It is communicated differently on paper, but is audibly the same note. B major has a rule set of 5 sharps, so even this seemingly massive change is only a modification count of 2. Back to the initial point, I don't think it's an accident that the composer, Manaka Kataoka, has these 2 notes moved up higher to this specific key. On the surface level, she was showing the way that Tulin is a cut above the rest, being able to generate a powerful stream of wind that no other of its kind can. But if we dig a little deeper, we see that it's perfectly indicative of where Tulin's headspace is. Yes, it's incredibly isolating to be at the top of your game, as we saw with Revali in Breath of the Wild, but it can also be really isolating to be a kid who's just growing up. You stop wanting to be like the kids around you, to play, to talk and act like they do, and so you start to immerse yourself in training, in fighting, exploration, or whatever it might be that grounds your ideals of what it means to be a grown-up. But at the same time, adults don't treat you like you belong with them either. You haven't gone through the transformative experiences that leave you with important understandings of how to navigate the world around you, how to relate to others. In their eyes, you're still a kid through and through, no matter how hard you may try to disprove that notion. When we met Tulin in Breath of the Wild, he was but a tiny fledgling. He was filled to the brim with excitable energy, and his explosive enthusiasm would come out when his dad offered to take him to the flight range, where he could begin to learn how to use his wings, where Link could show him all his cool archery tips. His eyes would light up with childlike wonder when Link would take to the currents, freezing time to snipe at targets in the distance, and he'd never hold back that excitement. When we meet him again in Tears of the Kingdom, he's still the same happy kid, but something's changed. We walk in on him arguing with his parents about how they just won't treat him like an adult, and we see that, wow, he's caught in the isolating steps of going through his own coming-of-age story. The reversal of the two starting notes sound like him trying to subvert the village's expectations of what flying can be through his unique technique, but also the expectations of who he should be at this point in time. The reversal is combined with the colossal distance in notes between it and the village's theme, making it sound as if Tulin is rejecting his people, their advice and their point of view. In his mind, he's thinking, they just don't get it. They don't understand how hard I've worked. They just want to see me as their kid. I'll show them. And so he takes off to the caves under the pretense of helping out, only to sneak off through brambles and sharp turns to prove that he doesn't need anyone. He can chase down and beat a group of monsters all by himself, and trophies of their corpses will be the proof that everyone needed to know that he can take care of himself just fine. But it's on this cold peak in the Hebra mountain range where he has his precious bow stolen by the enemy, leaving him stuck and defenseless. He doesn't feel like he belongs at home, distancing himself from his people, but outside it, he feels just as much like a complete stranger to the world around him, removed from the reality that he still has so much to learn. He has such a strong, childlike desire to grow up, to be entrusted as an equal and treated with the freedoms of an adult. Tulin wants so desperately acknowledgement from his father and those around him that he can handle more, that he can take on more risk, fly faster, higher, fight scarier enemies than they ever thought his little brittle bones or his itty-bitty beak could handle. Funnily enough, it's not even his accomplishments or any spectacle that finally earns him that validation. His dad, Teba, only gives him such acknowledgement after he works together with Link to get his bow back. He sees that Tulin has finally learned how to ask for help, and that he's learned how to work in tandem with someone else, and that perhaps he's beginning to understand that there is much strength to be had in cooperation and collaboration. That's the sign of maturity they were looking for, and with it, they give Tulin the all-clear to venture into the Sky Islands to get to the core of the danger together with Link. While Tulin was busy trying to prove his maturity, all the other Rito wanted from him was to see him express the knowledge that you're stronger with your people than without. That it's better to stay close than to push others away to great distances, and that it's okay to lean on each other occasionally, that it doesn't make you any weaker to do so. It's insane that two notes were able to communicate this. Even more insane than the fact that I analyzed 7 pages worth of writing out of such two notes, but I digress. But through two simple things, the reversal of notes and a transposing of keys, what could have just been a simple gust of wind was turned into something so unique, jarring, and cool. It's elegantly, sneakily tied to Tulin's own coming-of-age story, his struggles and his triumphs, everything that makes him him. And that is why Tulin's Sage Sound is a masterpiece. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me rant about two notes. Please like and subscribe to peer pressure me into making more of these, and share it with your friends so I may continue to rant a lot about my Zelda brain rot. Special thanks goes to my patrons who keep my content sustainable. If you'd like to join them, there is a link to my Patreon down below with all sorts of perks in thanks for your support. Let me know if there's anything you want to see me cover next. But with that, all I have to say is lots of love. Bye!